Welcome to the season 5 finale of the Balanced Voice podcast. I'm Rania Mankarios, joined by
Jennifer Homan.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, Rania.
I can't believe it's like the end of a season.
I know, it feels like it went really, really fast.
It went really, really, really fast. It's been a crazy year in general, I feel like. And so Jen and I, obviously, you guys have been watching us together. She's on our board. She's a dear friend of mine. We both lost our fathers recently. We've gone through a lot together at the same time. And she's very vocal. We haven't had to bleep you.
I know, I've been good.
Have we had to bleep you?
I think Sydney says once.
Wait, how many times have we bleeped
I think
Jen?
one time.
Just one
time.
See, I was a good girl. Yay, Jen.
So when we were talking about having Jen join us for the season, we were like, oh God, what are our bleeping capabilities? Because Jen's very, very emotional and her delivery. You're very passionate, but I love that because
those are passion words.
Those are passion words
They
said
are.
with love, not always with love, actually. But
When we're talking about a perpetrator, it's definitely not love.
yeah, exactly. And you've done so much work.
Thank you.
So much work.
You have to.
Well, you're in the trenches, and we thank you for that. And so Jen's kind of ridden this wave with us. What would you say, leaning back or looking back? Should we start with favorite podcast?
Let's start with favorite.
Okay.
I think let's say this. I think all of them were my favorite.
Yeah.
They were all really different guests, and they all had different perspectives, and they were all from different places of passion. But I think for me, and maybe I would think for you too, the most poignant, I believe, was Mattress Mac and Dr. McInvale.
Me too.
I think it's maybe because we both have such great respect for our fathers, and we both lost our fathers, and he is so fatherly, and she loves her daddy.
Yeah.
And so I think that was, I don't know. We're trying not to cry. We're trying to be funny today.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So I think that one was the most meaningful for me.
Yeah. And actually, it's funny because, I mean, you're in Houston 5 minutes. Actually, I've been talking to people. I talk to people across the country all the time, and they'll say, "Hey, your mattress guy, Matt," and I'm always like, "Mattress Mac," and they're like, "Yes." So he's sort of made an impact across the country for who he is and what he does for us in the community. We feel like we're very lucky he's Houston's because he does so much in the community
And in so many different spaces, Rania. It's
And
not just one thing he's passionate about.
in so many different spaces. And you and I were talking on the way to that podcast, I remember, about all the different areas that he works in, like homelessness and food shelters and education. He's set up
illness, trafficking, or anti-trafficking, yes.
He's doing so much. So we feel very blessed that he's Houston's. But then sitting there with his daughter, who Dr. Elizabeth McInvale is a leading specialist in OCD, has groundbreaking work and treatment, especially treatment for children, and is doing such incredible work. But to your point, what was so beautiful about them was hearing them, yes, talk about the service they do in the community, but the root of the service was like at the kitchen table.
It's their mantra. It's
Yeah.
what was cool is when you look back, when you have a family that's passionate about serving others, or even you just do community work, or you're not serving others, you're just doing good things in the world. I think all of those have values they stand by. And so I remember growing up, my dad had these sayings that just were always these same sayings, and so did my mom. And I think you had that with your family too. But theirs have become like their mantra, or their taglines for what they believe in as a family, and that has created the service that they bring to the community. And I think another good thing about what they said was just the ability for, no matter whether you have wealth or you have wisdom or you can provide work, that everyone has the ability to give back.
Yes, I loved that.
You don't have to have money.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think that was important, because there were times where they didn't have money.
Yeah.
They came from a very, a middle-class family, their root of their family. So
That was a really strong point that they made, especially Dr. McInvale. Elizabeth kept saying everybody has a role. Everybody can do something, and even if that's showing kindness, And I think of, when I say that, I think of our dear friend Paul Castro, and the acts of kindness he's pushing in David's legacy. But that's another whole podcast for another day, because what they're doing is so incredible. Sitting with them, we went to their store, got to sit with them side by side. I love the fact that Jim McInvale is a larger than life personality, but he gave room for his daughter, and he kept kind of letting his daughter take the lead. And he is so fatherly.
I
You're
know.
right.
I would say ask him if he could adopt us.
I know.
He already has adopted children.
I don't know, but we can be added
We can
to
add
this,
it.
that,
Yeah,
to that
that's right.
list.
That's right.
So what was your dad's mantra?
My
One of your dad's
wow. My dad's mantra was just always there were a couple things around body safety.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know this is you may bleep this one too, but it has no curse words. His was since we were very little, that we were empowered to say, "Don't touch my private, or I'll beat you up."
Oh, wow.
So we learned to beat somebody's ass early on in life if they were going to hurt us.
Because all girls.
All girls.
Yeah.
We had all girls.
Yeah.
The other one was, let others go first. My dad would always, but somehow he would say, let others go first. But when we were in line for something, somehow we always end up at the front of the line. But bringing about 5 other people with us, right? I mean, like because my dad's was in Vegas, and so all the casinos or the shows we would go to or whatever. Somehow the Iranian came out in him and got us to the front, right?
I love it.
But we'd bring about 3 of the friends we met in the line, right?
Come on.
He always would say, don't let other people's spirit hurt your spirit. So
I love that.
That's where I think my family or my sisters and I learned to create boundaries with people that were, would potentially negative or hurting us or whatever. So there were those kind of things that and I remember there's this guy that, we used to walk down Highway 6 and he would carry this big cross, and it was like kind of a symbolism of Jesus. And my dad would always get out, carry the cross for him, and give him money. He was a homeless man.
Aww.
But he did this as just a show of faith. And so it's always help other people carry their burden. It makes it lighter for someone else is what I think he was trying to do.
Sweet.
So what about you? What were y'all's?
So I don't know. My dad's was a very emotional person. So he's a chemist by trade, but an artist.
Mine.
Yeah, my dad.
Okay, wow.
My dad invented the heat transfer label, which I'll explain at another time because nobody has time for that. But he was an artist too. But he'd always say, don't let people mistake your kindness for weakness. That was his big thing. We're very kind, but it doesn't mean you're weak. And then he'd always just say, which is, he'd always say, I love you so much, it's painful. And that, as a parent now, I fully understand. Like, your love is painful. And the way you love people, especially your children, can be very painful. And what does that mean? The sacrificial love. But anyway, we could talk about our dads forever. And Jim McInville, you're right. He's like Houston's dad. Mac, do you want to adopt us? Okay.
Please. We're not that expensive.
Dr. Elizabeth McInville will be your sisters now.
And Liz, too. I think she, we met her husband, too.
Yeah, Matt Mackey.
And they are just, I think, a power couple.
Yes.
In the way they support each other and help each other. And I just think Liz, I'd never met her before, but had heard of her. And I think what she's trying to do and the authenticism that comes from her is amazing.
Yes.
And so I think that as people get through some of the things that they're working through, and I think she said sharing her story, she felt like she did it early on in life because her family was so well known, but the ability that she did step out and start helping others, I think it's just a powerful person. I think she'll be just as helpful to the community as Mac will.
Well, and I love the fact that these families of legacy are multi-generational.
Yes.
So Houston's not losing any of that legacy power because the kids carry it forward. In terms of power, I am just taken by Anna Rager.
Oh, wow. Right.
I mean, a mom who was just so tired of hearing about school shootings and, whether it's domestic violence, and wanted to come up with a solution. And she's working on legislation and other things, but she actually created the gadget, the flip-flop.
She invented it, right? And she didn't even finish. I think she left school in her middle school years.
She did.
Right?
She had a very trying upbringing, which we discuss in the podcast. She shares in the podcast.
I mean, that should tell to any human being. That should tell them, no matter, what things you think you need to finish, whether it's education or a training or whatever, just take the risk of thinking that you have a good idea and follow through and execute. I like I was telling you earlier, I bought 3 of these. We have rental properties. And one of the moms was like, look, I have a little one and that'll easily open the door. And so I'm like, oh my God, I have flip blocks. So I bought flip blocks for all of our rental properties.
That's so great.
And so that it makes them feel a little bit safer. And so she's phenomenal. And what a power.
I know, tiny woman, but super, super mighty and powerful. She's created a solution for schools, and we are interested in it. I was very interested in it being a solution for schools that passed all the little hoops, like, fire can get in should there be a fire. If the school shooter's on the inside of a room, the school can still get in. So all these things that have been burdens or barriers, I should say, for other groups, Anna sort of circumvented all of it and created a solution. And then it also works for homes, as you're saying, if you're worried about being broken into or have a domestic violence situation. So I thought she's just such a powerful person, and she's supporting the podcast, been our title sponsor this season, and absolutely a woman that we'll keep working with and watching, because she's doing incredible things.
She is. She's amazing. And to Anna, I think we would say, just keep going. We're behind you. We support you, and we'll promote your product, because we definitely think it's one of the best things that's coming out of the market for safety.
Thank you to our Season 5 sponsor, FlipLock, for making this episode possible. FlipLock was created as a nationwide, straightforward solution to protect your people, whether it be in universities, dorms, daycares, hospitals, or even government buildings. We're proud to have such a strong and like-minded sponsor this season. Check out FlipLock at fliplock.com. That's FLIPLOK.com.
So we had like 3 people that were coming to us from the law enforcement community. So we started the podcast with Deputy Jessica, and I keep saying her last name wrong. Leggett,
I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she had actually been exposed to fentanyl in a drug bust. Like she started to feel dizzy, lightheaded, etc. We had Craig Sawyer, who's, I feel like your kindred spirit, who's out in the field tracking traffickers, child predators, stings and busts and arresting people. And then we had Special Agent Bill Bodner, who joined us from LA to talk about drugs and, cartel and all of this. And all of these podcasts were so fascinating to watch. 3 people in law enforcement doing such difficult and different things. My takeaway is I'm forever thankful for the people who decide to serve. Even though I know that there's a lot of issues in every industry, especially, we've got to look at all of it, and law enforcement's not immune from that. We know that, and we can talk about that in detail. But right now, these 3 individuals are doing such tremendous work in such different areas.
And in a profession where I think we're having a hard time getting that younger generation to go into.
Yeah.
And so to me, that sharing their stories, and I think we should continue to do more, where we're showing that this law enforcement agents, these officers are feeling happy about what they do, that they contribute, they give their time, they're sharing their stories, they're making it relevant, and everyone can understand how the situations that they were in could very well be, a parent walking into a child that's doing drugs and inhale it themselves, and their child may be doing fentanyl, or dispelling some of the myths that we have. We hear about all the sensationalism of crimes, but to hear about them on the ground from the people that were there, I think just opens the reality up to, and how connected the drug and the sex trafficking, drug trafficking and sex trafficking connected to each other. Yeah. So it was good to hear. I mean, it's often for me a little bit scary to think this is how bad it's really gotten. But then if we close our eyes, we're never going to help prevent, right?
I mean, Craig Sawyer, the documentary Contraband, which of course we linked to in that podcast, we talked about this. The number of people that came in, seemingly to have sex with a young girl, young child, and you had dads and accountants and, grandfathers, and it was just horrific. And then Special Agent Bodner, we were able to talk to him about this whole idea of fentanyl candy, which is
Skittles packages.
Terrifying to me.
Right.
Terrifying.
I just had Skittles. I don't think I'm ever going to see Skittles the same again.
Yes.
Like I just had Skittles downstairs in the conference room, and I thought to myself, just imagine this being packaged up. Now, they re-glue it or whatever, but if you're just hurrying, your kid's not going to know what that looks like.
And in sort of the younger generation, I mean, look, we all did this. Like, who has candy? Oh, I want some. You have some. Where'd you get it? Nobody's saying, like, where'd you get it? Is it the original packaging?
Right.
And there's the other side of, like, we can't become so paranoid that we think our kids at school are going to get fentanyl-laced candy. But the reality is, and I don't have the numbers now, but in the podcast we did discuss it, there's an unbelievable amount of this stuff coming into states like Texas. Totally. So it's not completely foreign.
No, it's not foreign, and it's not out of, it's not crazy thinking. Somebody's like, they're just, they're basically overstating what's happening at the border, or they're not. They're not. I mean, he said they just what was that big? They just did a huge bust.
I know. It's
scary. I don't know the word for it.
So
fine?
let me ask you, Jen, we talked about this a little bit, but as we wrap up the season, do you ever feel like, okay, there's such a great appreciation for the work that we all do, whether your work in trafficking through Houston 20, Fight for Us, your work through Crime Stoppers, value in it? Are there days when you're just like, this is just too hard and it's too hard to move the needle? Nobody cares. Nobody cares, in the sense that it's like, it's not my problem, so I don't care.
I think it has been rewarding for the past 6 years. I mean, I think none of us do this just because it's just helping others. You've got to have some level of endorphin that you're getting off of knowing that you're helping others, right? So there's a lot of selflessness and selfishness in it. I will say in the last few months, I feel like we're in a slump. In fact, I talked to some people all across the nation and across the world about what's going on in this space and are things getting better. That we know that the trafficking cases across the globe have decreased by 48%. Mm-hmm. So that means
which when I heard, I was like, great. And no, it's not great.
No, because that means they're not prosecuted. We know we don't have a better situation. We know there's 250 million sites out there that are basically selling children for sex, but they're not coming to being prosecuted. And I feel like the space, even in the crime space, so not just the trafficking, but I feel like we're in this lull. Like after COVID, like we got all back to work, could go out there and start doing more work again in the community. And kind of I feel like we're just in this space of like, is anybody listening? Does anybody care? Are things even progressing? What laws do we work on? Because it feels like we made such headway now, and I wish it was just kind of the trajectories like this, but maybe maybe it's cyclical. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like people don't care. Yes, it's daunting to know how much work those of us that have been in this space and see each other all the time are doing. It just doesn't feel like more people are coming to the rescue to help. Does that make sense?
It does, but I actually thought of it differently when you said that the number of cases, the percentage is down by double digits. I was like, oh my gosh, the awareness
is working
and people are thinking twice before buying. Mm-hmm. But I guess I'm being a hopeless optimistic. I don't know. Because I do think there are changes in social media sites. I think Nikosi's doing incredible.
Great with
they just sent something, and I haven't had a chance to look at it, but about Google blurring images with nudity. I mean, that's honestly, if that could happen,
a lot of progress.
That's huge. Yeah. That is, my gosh, that is 5,000 steps forward.
Right.
And we know a lot of the sales and transactions happen online.
Yes.
So I'm really holding on to what I'm hoping are positive steps.
Okay. I'm just going to leverage your positive. I mean, I'm positive too. I just don't know if I feel like the demand in what's happening with crime and with people being trafficked, I just don't know that I feel like that's less.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
And so I think that, but I'm super positive about continue to create awareness, continue to try to create prevention in the younger generation. And as they're coming up, I think we just keep working and moving forward, whether we think the numbers are right or not.
Okay, so we didn't prep for this question, and so you may not have an answer, but what?
Wait, do we prep for questions?
Never. Okay. Literally never. we meet like 3 minutes before and we're like, okay, hi.
Don't show that face.
Yes. We don't prep. Which is what I think good.
Yeah.
But this would really is like, what do you hope we'll be talking about next? Like, what did we not talk about that you'd like to talk about?
I think what I really would like to talk about next is getting big influencers involved in our space, right? Influencers that can help influence others. Like, I think the influencer world has changed, meaning it used to be Hollywood and all those famous people, and they would hold up signs, and then those kind of campaigns just kind of went, right? It doesn't really go anywhere. What I hope that is the influencers that are social media influencers would come to this space and grab up this flag with us around anti-crime, around anti-trafficking, around anti-drugs, and literally they have millions of followers, and it's quantifiable. You know they're seeing their content. So if they have 1 million followers, you know 1 million followers are seeing the content. I think sometimes on TV and movies and all that, we don't really know what the numbers are and if it's making a change. So I think that's what I wish we would be able to tap into next, is bringing those influencers and convincing them we need their help to influence a larger global community. I think that's one of them. I think
it is very hard to get influencers in this space. Like it's very easy to move into like discussions of environment or global warming for an influencer. Child welfare, like in a way, is something that they'll touch. Domestic violence, animal cruelty is something, but trafficking and crime it's very hard to, unless they have become victims,
right? And then they're willing to share their own story and lend their voice. Yes. And I think when we met with Alyssa, I don't remember how you say Alyssa's last name. No, who was the one that we met with that is a social media influencer? Talking about Yami.
Oh my gosh, Yami. Why are we not talking about Yami?
I loved Yami.
Yami's reach is unbelievable. Yes.
And so Yami to me was like, I kind of wanted to be like Yami.
Yami's amazing.
Know that I'm like a social media influencer type. I don't know if I could learn the technology to bleep myself on videos.
Yami Pence. So she's a former ICAC officer.
Yep.
And she's a child safety educational expert. 27,000 followers on just Instagram. I think TikTok is much more, but sorry, go ahead. She's amazing.
She's amazing. Yes. And so I think we need more of those, that we start to create strategies and messages with. Yami was amazing. Her content really reaches people and really resonates, I think.
Yes.
And so I think that's what we need more in that space, is to encourage those influencers to create content like that.
I agree with that completely.
I mean, so I think that's what it is. And child safety, body safety, protection. How do we raise this? I feel like sometimes I feel like our generation or the generation before us, it's a lot harder to get them to change, to get them to change their way. I can't tell you how many parents I talk to. And I talk to them about your book, and I talk to them about Deborah's book. It's a Tech Trap and the Online World. Those are my two favorite books to refer.
Thank you.
I can't tell you how many, probably your biggest Amazon buyer. But the thing about that is like, people are still shocked that I'm telling them keep the phones out of
I know.
Like, they're shocked that this is still happening. And so I think we need more influencers, Rania.
Yeah, well, the big thing I get is, well, my kids don't have a phone or they're not online. And I'm like, every kid has access to technology.
It's that next generation through social media that we need to prep.
Yes, every kid has access to technology.
And that age group, I think, is about 25 and younger, are the ones that are listening to social media content on a consistent basis, hours and hours a day.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right? I mean, I get addicted to TikTok on Facebook.
Yeah. So I just started learning about TikTok. Like, literally, I'm not a huge TikTok person. And my husband will be like, okay, we're planning our whole trip based on TikTok. I'm like, what? But so...
Rami?
Yes.
Really?
Oh my, he's like, the best restaurants in France based off TikTok. I'm like, okay. So him and my oldest are on TikTok. But I will say, so I just started posting on TikTok, and like, there's a community of viewership there. Huge. And so, and it's not just young kids. It's not just young kids. But to your point, young kids are going to platforms like TikTok, awful
Instagram,
hateful Twitter, which I can't. But all these places, Twitter is where adults go to bully each other. We all know. I mean, that's where adults go to have no guidelines, decorum, anyway. But our kids are going there to get their news from their opinions.
Kids aren't on Twitter.
I know, but there's
adults are on Twitter and Facebook.
But I'll tell you, I was with a dear friend of mine whose daughter's growing up in San Francisco, and she's like 15 years old. She's forming all of her political opinions based on people she follows on Twitter.
Oh God, help us.
So I mean, and you don't know who she's following.
No.
But anyway, so you're right. If influencers can sort of help fill the space, but it's just another voice. It's very, very hard to break through. But Yami's doing a great job.
I agree 100%. I'm at a loss as to how to reach the generations that are ours and older. I don't yet know how to get them to engage, get enraged, and activate. I don't know. The younger generation from 30, 25 and younger, it is these social media platforms, and we need influencers to come to the table. They're very used to getting like free products when they hold up a product, blah, blah, blah. To me, the compelling moment to do this is you're saving a child. So I'm not going to give you a free product, but please come and talk with us so that we can help the community, save a child. Maybe not a free product, but save a child.
It's amazing if
And
that
so
would
that's
happen.
what I'm thinking. I know, wouldn't it be good?
It's been an exciting season, and it's been so fun to have you. There was one show we did, Jen, you couldn't be with us, but we talked to about counterfeit products, which was fascinating. And what does it mean when you're buying, stuff that's not really real, or you think it's deeply discounted? And they walked us through sort of the impact of, whether it's dangerous products or even the impact it has globally on economies, or how you might be feeding into like criminal rings across the country. I think we've discussed, even though it's been a very, very sort of crazy time for both of us, sort of picking up and standing up and walking again after such tragic losses. But we had a great season, and
We
you
did.
were just
Thank you.
best.
Thank you
for
I'm
being
not a
our
professional at
co-host.
it, but I only had to be bleeped once is all I've got to say.
You knocked it out of the park every time. And those behind the camera, Sydney Zeiker, Ellie Escobar, Tanya Cruz, Caitlin Frey is sometimes with us, not always. But we thank them too. For you guys who listen and give us ideas, share the podcast, like it. Please continue to do it. Please rate it and tell others about us. Let us know what topics you want to hear about. And we look forward to seeing you guys all on season 6.
And do not forget to buy Runya's book, The Online
Oh,
World.
yes.
It will save your family, save your child, save your life.
Thank you, Jen, my biggest fan. Thank you, guys. We'll catch you next time. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to today's Balanced Conversation. You can find real solutions and tangible resources in our show notes at thebalancedvoicepodcast.com. To join the conversation, follow us on Instagram at The Balanced Voice Podcast and on Twitter at @BalancedVoice_. Stay up to date on Runya's work by following her at The Runya Report, and we can't wait to see you next week for another Balanced Conversation.